everyone! I've been seeing a lot of the crochet and knit vests on the runways and on Pinterest, and because I had some leftover winter yarn laying around, I thought that this was the perfect project to try it on. I am really happy with the end result, and I am going to show you how I did it. To start, I am going to make a slip knot and then I am going to chain 5. That is going to be the width of the hem of my vest. If you want a shorter or a wider hem, then make sure to adjust the chain stitches accordingly. After you chain 5, chain 1 more to increase. The first row of our project is going to be made by single crochets, so every row will have the same number of stitches, 5 in my case. To make the hem look like it is ribbed, we are going to work only on the front loop of each row, and I'm going to show you how I do that. Chain 1 to increase, turn your work, and then continue by making rows of single crochets, but every time you are making a stitch, only grab the front loop of the anchoring stitch instead of grabbing both loops. Now, because I want my hem to have slits on either side, I am going to make the front panel and the back panel. So each panel has 26 rows. Again, you can change that to make it suit your body. So if you want to make more rows, go ahead and do that. But I made 26 rows. Alright, so this is my front panel and you can see how it looks like. It looks like it's ribbed. Now, to make the back panel, start by chaining 5 again, plus 1 to increase. And then we are going to repeat the same exact process that we did for the front panel. When you finish the back panel, go ahead and make 1 row of slip stitches to finish off the panel nicely. Now that we have finished the hem of the vest, all we have to do is join both of the sides together. Before you do that, make sure that it's not twisted. And all you have to do is put the hook on the top stitch of the front panel and then join it with the back panel by making a slip stitch. Now, to make the first row of the body of the vest, I am going to continue using the same brown yarn, and I am just going to make a row of single crochets all around. When I finish the row, I'm going to join the last stitch to the row with a slip stitch. And this is also the perfect opportunity to hide the yarn end in between your stitches. When you finish, go ahead and chain 1 to secure the yarn and cut it off, because we are ready to change to the other color. To start working with a white yarn, I am going to join it to the hem by making a slip stitch. To make the body of the vest, we are going to make rows of single crochets. And every time you finish a row, you join it to the next row with a slip stitch, and then you chain 1 to increase and make another row and another row. I made 6 rows in total. I felt like that was the appropriate size for me, but if you want to make more rows, go ahead and make more rows. To be honest, if I could go back, I would make 10 rows or 12, but go ahead and measure it against your torso and see if that fits you. Once you finish, we are going to start making the collar of the vest. So go ahead and mark that middle stitch, and that is going to be the stitch that marks the center of your collar. Start the next row by slip stitching into the first 2 stitches because they are going to be part of the armhole, and then continue with single crochets until you get to the stitch just before the central stitch that we just marked. At this point, we are going to start reducing by 1 stitch each row on the side of the collar in order to create that V that the vests have. So don't chain to increase. Instead, turn your work and work directly in the next single crochet stitch in order to decrease 1 stitch per row. When you do finish the row and you are on the side of the armpit, you are still going to continue chaining one to increase before you turn the work. Here you can see how I am doing the last single crochet of the row, and then I immediately turn my work, and then I start by making the single crochet in the second stitch of the row. Your collar should be looking like something like this, with a decrease on the side of the collar. Now you are going to decrease by one stitch until you have only 4 stitches in the row. So that means that I made 11 rows, and my 11th row only had 4 single crochet stitches. Once you have 4 single crochets, go ahead and make 8 more rows of 4 single crochets. And this was the height that was right for me, so this reached the top of my left shoulder. If you have a longer torso than me, then you may want to make more rows. Once you finish, go ahead and mark that so that you know where the front of your vest ends and the back of your vest begins. Now we are starting to make the back of the vest, and because I had only one ball of yarn, I knew that I had limited yarn. If I had more yarn to spare, I would widen the back of my vest, but I didn't know if it was going to be enough. So essentially all I am going to do is make 18 more rows of single crochets. Now, in order to make that curve of the armpit, I am going to add one more single crochet to that last row that we just did. So row number 18 will have 5 single crochets. The next row is going to have 6 single crochets because I am going to make 2 single crochets in the first stitch and then continue as normal. This is it for the left side of our vest. Make sure that all the rows align with each other and that you have asymmetry between the front and the back. And now you're ready to cut the yarn and finish this part of the vest. For the right side of the vest, we are going to do exactly what we did on the left side. I started by attaching my yarn 13 stitches from the center because that's what I did on the other side. And then my first 2 stitches are slip stitches to make that curve of the armpit. And for the rest of the rows, we are going to do exactly the same, where we are going to make single crochets, but we are going to decrease by one single crochet on the side of the v-neck until we are left with only 4 single crochets. The next step is to make sure that the rows are aligned properly. And so what I like to do is to just join them with a stitch marker so that I know for a fact that I've joined everything in the right place before I attach them together with a crochet yarn. So this is the part where we are going to join the straps to the body of the vest. So go ahead and turn your vest inside out. And what I decided to do was to join the matching stitches with a row of slip stitches. Now, I think I made a mistake here because when I joined the matching stitches, I grabbed the full stitch on both the bottom and the top, as you can see here. But actually, if I were to do it again, I would grab only the loops that are closer to me, so the posterior loops, and not all the loops, and that way it will be more seamless on the back of the vest, because this was a little bit noticeable. It was still fine, but if you would like it to be very seamless, then only grab the posterior loops and not the anterior ones. When you get to the end of the strap, slip stitch one stitch up because you want to continue making single crochets so that you have the height of the back. So this was the way to get that height without having to chain anything. And as you can tell, I'm just going to do single crochets until I get to the other strap. When you get to the other side, we are going to join the row of single crochets with the strap by first passing our yarn on the side stitch and then matching the lower stitches together and slip stitching them all. If you're having difficulty with this step, just watch what I'm doing because it's easier to see than it is to explain. Then continue by joining them together with your slip stitches until you get to the other end. Once you're done, go ahead and once again cut your yarn. Alright guys, so this was a tricky part for me because I only had this amount of yarn left and I knew that I would not have the necessary amount to make a full back. So what I decided to do was to just make rows of single crochets basically until the yarn was over. And I used those long yarn ends to actually stitch the back of the vest to the straps. And what I'll do is I'll just fast forward and let you guys see exactly what I'm doing. But if you do have more yarn that I did, go ahead and make the whole back up to the neck or to the lower back or to the upper back. Basically make it as high as you want your vest to be. Alright, so now all that is left to do is to tie up everything. Weave in the yarn ends that are out, but do not cut them just yet because you are going to need them to join the straps to the back of the vest. So I'm going to fast forward again and just show you what I'm doing so that you can do it too.